Jason Nash went from being one of YouTube's biggest stars, making $35,000 a month, to TikTok's most infamous panhandler. Seriously, at any given moment, Jason Nash is most likely live and begging for donations.
Thank you. I love you, Starshine. Thank you.
Or if not, you'll find a clip of him on a podcast saying that he needs money and throwing shade at David Dobrik.
You know, he turned down all this money and all he had to do was talk to me once a week for 40 minutes, you know, like I'll say things like, I'm losing my house. and he'll be like, oh, but just come play pool.
So how did things get to this point, and why does it actually matter? Well, Jason Nash has this interesting history of working in entertainment longer than almost anyone alive, yet having fairly little to show for it. I mean, after over a decade of pursuing acting, he was never able to find his footing beyond minor guest roles and overlooked projects. Seriously, one of his most well-known parts is him delivering one line on Drake and Josh.
Are you all right?
He also pursued stand-up comedy, but faced similar struggles with finding success. But things started looking up in 2013 thanks to an app called Vine. Essentially TikTok's predecessor, Vine became one of the first video hosting platforms to find success comparable to that of YouTube, with their 6-second videos quickly shaping online culture.
Help me first! I'll save you! Woohoo! He's already gone!
Yeah, but that backflip though.
And it was on Vine that Jason cracked the code that led to his decade-long career as a creator who never needed to learn how to create. See, as much as I generally refrain from name-calling, it's hard to find a word that better describes Jason Nash than, well, a leech. Seriously, Jason's entire career online is built on attaching himself to any young, up-and-coming talent he can find in order to cement himself as the token middle-aged man in their content and ride their coattails to the top, which was actually a really smart move when you consider just how much of a disadvantage Jason was at when he got into content creation. For one, he's primarily an actor and stand-up comedian, so while he knew how to entertain, he wasn't someone who had much experience with writing and producing content online, nor did he grow up watching it. And that wasn't the only disadvantage that came with his age. Simply put, Jason Nash was also quite a bit older than the vast majority of content creators, which may sound unimportant, but the people consuming content online have always been more drawn to creators on the young side. So when you consider that he was entering such a foreign landscape, it makes a ton of sense for Jason to showcase what he is good at by getting on camera for someone who doesn't have those factors working against them. On Vine, this was Brandon Cavillo, who quickly became one of the platform's largest comedians.
With the knife
Not
down.
a chance. Wait, Bill?
Rick?
From high school! Rick? Stan!
And once these two met, it wasn't long before Jason was front and center in almost all of Brandon's sketches. Now, that's not to say that Jason wasn't making his own Vines, but getting to showcase his acting talents in Brandon's videos exposed Jason to a massive audience, especially since their dynamic would typically include Brandon acting as the more serious straight man, while Jason would tackle the more eccentric and over-the-top characters that the punchlines would hinge on.
What are you doing with that cat, Uncle Alec?
I'm teaching him sign language.
Are you selling him for crack?
No! There's a cat. Come back later. Bring crap.
Yeah, it's just ever since the breakup, it's just been... What are you doing?
What do you need me to do?
I'm gonna take off now.
Why'd you kill that guy?
We just watched the movie
Is that Channing Tatum?
No, it's Morgan Freeman.
Are you sure?
I mean, Jason had already spent over a decade in the industry and was finally getting to show off what he could do. In other words, things were finally looking up. And it was about to get even better thanks to David Dobrik. See, it's nearly impossible to tell Jason's story without also mentioning David's, because it was David Dobrik building an empire on YouTube that saved him. See, David had also grown quite a large following on Vine.
It's a boy. Let me just cut off the umbilical cord. Sir, you just cut off his penis. It's a girl.
But in 2016, it was announced that the app would be discontinued after failing to monetize its content. But some were able to take what should have been catastrophic and leverage it into a career beyond anything Vine was capable of. I mean, Vine alumni have gone on to join the WWE, be on Dancing with the Stars, and even be nominated for Grammys. But on YouTube specifically, David Dobrik quickly became one of their top creators, despite the platform working against him. See, vlogging as a genre was starting to fade in popularity throughout the 2010s as YouTube began to prioritize watch time over views. So finding success as a vlogger hinged on somehow doing something that no one else could, like Casey Neistat applying all of his skills as a filmmaker to make his daily vlog a documentary series, or the Paul brothers who used their wealth and questionable morals to make people want to live vicariously through them. But for someone like Jason who had very little knowledge about YouTube, that wasn't going to be an option. So after Vine shut down, he went back to focusing on his stand-up and acting. Enter David Dobrik.
I was just doing stand-up one night at the Improv, and David was in the audience, and then he talked to me after. He's like, you should come to YouTube. It sounded so fun.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't do YouTube. I'm like 43. And he was like, oh, why not? Like, just go do it. And he's like, well, how much money do you need to make a month? And I was like, I need like $5,000 a month, which I thought was insane. He's like, oh, you can make $5,000 a month. And I was like, what? I was like, no way. And he's like, yeah, just like start a channel.
See, David understands making content on a very deep level. So to make his mark on YouTube, he did something that no one else would and kept his videos as short as possible. Simply put, when YouTube's algorithm changed, David Dobrik responded by kind of breaking said algorithm.
That meant actually users were staying on the platform longer because they were binging, and therefore were actually fed more ads. And so YouTube's algorithm was so confused and then pushed the videos everywhere because so many people were watching so many more ads. And so we actually challenged and beat the system because of it. Now, don't get me wrong, I will openly admit David Dobrik is the one who put that seed in our head. He was years ahead of us on that realization.
So okay, David took a risk, sure, but that's not all he did. See, David became somewhat of a foil to the Paul brothers, where he was also producing vlogs about his wealthy lifestyle, but with one major difference, a difference that changed Jason's life. Because David's vlogs weren't really about him. Instead, he was basically providing a first-person perspective of his life from behind the camera. And this made his vlogs feel more like David wanting to document his group of friends rather than himself. Not to mention that David showcasing his wealth was usually accompanied by him sharing it.
We don't need any more. Dude, you just paid like 10 grand for us to move out here 6 weeks ago.
Me and the Ariana Foundation, we want to give you a check for $60,000 for your hip.
No. No. Are you fucking kidding me? Thank you so much.
And here it is. Wow. All right, what's up guys? So it's Zane's birthday today, so we're gonna throw him a little birthday surprise.
So while other vloggers were focused on using their wealth to create envy, David played the underdog who made it and wanted to express his gratitude. Though on top of that, David would often pull elaborate stunts and pranks in order to keep raising the bar. And because this content centered around a group of his friends that he was giving cars and careers to, boundaries weren't as much of a concern.
This earthquake prompted talk about the San Andreas Fault, which is a huge continental fault that's due to rupture any second, and when it does, it's gonna cause serious damage to the West Coast.
Fucking no, if the San Andreas Fault were to rupture, you'd be the biggest pussy out of all of us. You'd be the biggest.
That's not,
you would.
No,
you would
it's not
totally
true at all.
So naturally, I want to see how you would actually react if the San Andreas Fault was to rupture.
David, is this fake?
Is what?
David, is this fake? You have to tell me right now.
Jason, where are you going?
Jason, where are you going?
Jason, where are you going?
I'm going to kids like
Jason. We're not going back there. We're not going out there.
Let me out of the house. I don't care if I go to jail. I'm not staying in a house.
Dude.
I'm gonna hit you. Let me out of the house.
Brandon.
I'm gonna hit you. Let me out of the house.
Why?
Because I need to get out of here.
Brandon, get on the phone with your mom right now and you tell her that this is a prank.
I fucking knew it. There are limits. This right now
is dope.
Who are those people out there?
They're all extras. We hired like 20 extras just to pack their cars.
And much like with Jason, David made sure that the people around him knew how to be on camera. This meant everyone would laugh along and give the perfect reaction. And as David's eventual right-hand man, Jason was right there with him, helping to make these antics possible. To put it simply, Jason won the lottery by meeting David because he's a performer by nature. This was his chance to let someone else be the brains and mainly focus on being funny. Not to mention the free cars and exposure that David brought. Because while David assembled what became known as the Vlog Squad, Jason was front and center, giving David everything he had. And while yeah, a lot of these creators were probably using David for exposure, he was using them for content. In many cases, it was a fairly symbiotic relationship. But when it came to Jason, some might say things leaned closer to parasitic. See, most Vlog Squad members would try to make a name outside of, well, David. I mean, David's vlogs were getting tens of millions of views, so it makes sense to do something with that exposure. But Jason took a different approach, instead cementing himself as David's sidekick. So not only did Jason appear in more of David's vlogs than anyone else, but they also started a podcast together, Views. And while Jason was made the clear number 2, he didn't seem to mind one bit. Now throughout all of this, Jason did try to take the reins and produce his own content. Like, credit where credit is due, Jason's personal YouTube channel does have over 3 million subscribers. The problem is, the identity of that content was still heavily reliant on David. Like in practice, Jason's channel was mostly operating as David's second, rather than a showcase of who Jason is. But even with that, Jason was making a ton of money doing this.
And so then like I made like a very, very bad first YouTube video with him. And then maybe like 4 months later, I was making like $35,000 a month.
Really? Yeah.
And after all this time, he was finally living the life of an A-lister.
Okay, here it is. Jason's new house.
I bought my mom a brand new Mercedes.
And according to Jason, their podcast was on track to be huge.
You ever think about like, hey, I used to have one of the biggest podcasts
Oh
in
my
the world.
God, all the time. He walked away from millions of dollars and all he had to do was talk to me for 40 minutes a week.
Like, Jason was on the verge of being one of the top earning creators in history, despite not knowing anything about content creation. But that's the thing. In 2021, Jason was wealthy because of David, and was on the cusp of a literal fortune because of David. So looking back, it's clear that Jason bet everything on David being too big to fall. And to be fair, Jason was quite right in thinking that. But what he never expected was for David to just quit while still at the top. Because unlike Jason, David already made his fortune. So what happened? Well, the Vlog Squad's willingness to push boundaries was actually their undoing. Various people started to come out and detail how David would treat them like fictional characters rather than, well, people. Friends.
Right, and that's what it was. He set the environment that like these people only hang out around me to put me down and feel better about themselves because I didn't want to like get made fun of, like, and I knew by saying that I wasn't gonna be in the content anymore.
It's kind of like an unwritten thing where you see a pattern of people saying like, yo, I'm uncomfortable with this, hey bro, like this isn't really cool, that all of a sudden they just disappear and then they're not videos anymore.
And so that's when he started like being like, we're not filming with Trish. I would go over and he's like, Trish, you stay in the car.
Did he ever do that to anybody else?
Like the boring ones, like Carly and Aaron, they always had to like stay back. But he started using them after I left because like the girls.
What?
Yeah.
What kind of world is this where he's telling people to stay in the car? So both you and Jason are saying, David, don't put this in the vlog.
Yeah.
And he does.
I still remember it was like 2 a.m. He calls Jason, like, can I put this? And I'm like, no. And then Jason's like, no, don't. And then he did. And then he did it again a second time that week.
And as a result, they were experiencing genuine trauma while David was snickering behind the camera.
It is so incredibly tough as a man to have to say that you were sexually assaulted by a man. The amount of trauma that you deal with, you don't even want to explain it to like your family and your friends.
Well, you had insider reporting that a young woman who was featured in a David Dobrik vlog back in 2018 claimed that she was raped by a Vlog Squad member, Dirty Dumb, the night that they were filming a vlog for David's channel. Hannah told Insider that she felt pressured by Zaglitis and the other Vlog Squad members into helping them create content that objectified her, saying it was very much an environment where it felt like saying no was not okay, saying it felt like from the moment we came, there was an expectation that they were doing us a favor and we had to give them content.
And most famously, Vlog Squad member Jeff Wittick suffered a near fatal injury to his skull and face while doing a stunt for David.
I needed time to process what happened to me. It's a like lifelong injury that I didn't even realize at first. Like I'll be getting eye surgeries once, twice a year till I'm fucking 80.
So before you knew it, David became one of YouTube's most disgraced creators, with many starting to realize that when he would toe the line for his vlogs, he was doing so with people that he had a lot of power over. I mean, even if something does cross the line for someone, could they afford to risk losing the free exposure that David was giving them? Exposure in one of the most volatile industries in history. No, for some that was too great of a risk. So in order to avoid rocking the boat, they would just laugh along and save it for their therapist. I mean, he was putting these creators in a position where if they played their cards right, they could spend the rest of their lives doing a weekly podcast and live very comfortably. So to see this failure and responsibility contrast with David's goofy and carefree persona, it meant that either David was intentionally making content at other people's expense, or arguably worse, he was entirely clueless about the power that he had over his so-called friends. And this is where Jason being so dedicated to David kind of backfired. Because every time that David crossed the line, Jason was right there with him, either as an enabler or direct participant. And most infamously, Jason partook in what one Vlog Squad member referred to as an assault.
David said that I was supposed to do a makeout scene with Corinna. So it's going, and then it's going on for a decent period of time. And then after Jason pulls off his mask, and I realized that, you know, I just was touched by someone that, you know, I did not, you know, consent to having their tongue, you know, it was a split decision. I was like, it's one or two things, like either be natural instincts and be the angry black guy in the room, or I can kind of just, you know, go along with it, and, you know, maybe I'll have some new friends that, you know, will support me in my ventures.
So as David's image sank, so did Jason's. And it didn't help that as Trish's ex, there was a whole other avenue from which people were critical of Jason.
I think we need to slow down on the food.
We've had one meal since we've been here.
Yeah, but we just...
That's my biggest pet peeve about you is the fact that you comment on people's food choices. I don't like that about you.
I comment on food choices?
Yeah, one more nugget, babe. Nug me.
I think we should stop.
Unsupportive boyfriend.
So in an effort to save a rapidly sinking ship, David released several videos responding to these criticisms. And upon saying his piece, he and Jason tried to go back to business as usual, but it just wasn't the same. Someone almost lost their life. People were placed in very compromised positions all on their watch. I mean, even David's friends weren't willing to defend him.
But I really love David Dobrik, and I'm really conflicted about that. And then all this came up that was horrifying to me, is it shows what happens when tremendous responsibility is bestowed on individuals that are unaccustomed to that kind of responsibility. And David Dobrik's not a victim at all. He's not a victim. Natalie's not a victim. But there are victims in this story.
And while his fans remained supportive and the views were still great, creators were just tired of David.
That's great, David. For people that don't know, David Dobrik just opened up a pizza shop, and he actually got insider information from real Italian chefs on how to make the dough. Want to know yourself? Just Google David Dobrik Insider article on Google. You're welcome.
If you're a big fan of David and you are mad at me for making this video, honestly, I don't care. Like, I genuinely don't. If you see these facts and you think I'm the villain here, then I don't really know what to say to you. I think you are just as bad as them.
It is a whole power dynamic where, like, he knows that people need or want to be there so bad that he is able to make them do things that they don't want to do.
Oh.
What is with David? He's like a cult leader.
Literally.
It is sad to see until you consider the circumstance and you go, oh.
Yeah, no.
Every ounce of sadness that I had is allocated to the victim.
No, 100%. Bro, David was exhibiting a lot of signs of that better than thou attitude that you called him out on.
And whether it was because of this, or feeling creatively stilted, or maybe something else entirely, David suddenly left YouTube in 2022. Because while Jason Nash has always been willing to face a platform that doesn't want him in order to make money, David seemed to be deeply affected by the loss of his reputation.
With any video I make, my main purpose is to make people happy and inspire people, and I never want anything to get in the way of that. And that breaks my heart, knowing that I was doing all this stuff and I was making all this content while there was people that were still really hurt by what I made.
So much so that making millions of dollars to face that level of hatred, that math just didn't work for someone who already had it all. So David ended both his vlog and podcast, opting to instead post on Snapchat, which all things considered makes a lot of sense. Snapchat has been increasingly monetizing for their top creators, and it's much more of a one-way platform. There would be no comment or discussion bashing David, and he could continue to make a similar kind of content. Now, some of the Vlog Squad were always preparing for a David-less career, but Jason did the opposite. He never formed his own identity online. So while he's been trying to keep things going on his own, continuing to vlog and starting his own podcast, the views still went down. Because since 2013, Jason has proved that yes, he can be very entertaining when elevating other creators, but he never showed the ability to do that on his own. I mean, it's kind of like Joey from Friends. Matt LeBlanc showed that the character could work really well as the number 2 of any scene, but very little work was ever done to make Joey feel like he could carry a show in the way the other characters could. He was always used to elevate others, so when put on his own, people just didn't care. It's not that Jason Nash isn't talented, it's that across 10 years of being a creator, he never learned how to create for himself. And if you ask me, I think a part of Jason has always looked down on content creation and saw it as beneath him, since his true ambitions were always in Hollywood.
Yeah. I was on Vine, I was on YouTube, I was on Snapchat, and now I'm doing this.
Don't say it like that. Now I'm doing this.
I mean, I do like it.
I feel like you do whatever you have to do all the time. That's what I've always known about you. You always just like, well, here's what I'm gonna do now. Why? Because I have to.
Because I have to.
Exactly.
Exactly. Now look, would I be on TikTok Live if I wasn't in like a financial hole? I don't know, probably not. But also like YouTube wasn't really working and I needed to find something.
I hate doing TikToks. Like, you know, the truth of it is that his vlog did so well that's why my vlogs did well. You know, so I didn't put so much effort into my vlogs. So I looked at it as being on like a TV show. a little bit. Like if that TV show is doing well, then I can go do anything. I can go do stand-up, I can sell tickets, I can sell merch.
So as a result, he spent a decade in an industry that he never truly embraced. Because let's face it, he never planned on having to. He's a performer, not a producer, not an editor, and not a writer, at least not for YouTube. But as a solo creator, you have no choice but to do it all. So after losing his main hook, how has Jason stayed afloat?
TikTok came to me, they're like, we'll help you. And I was like,
oh, that's good.
I was like, okay, I'm on there for 8 hours a day and I'm entertaining people. People want to come in talking.
Yeah. I mean, this is your job. This is what you do.
Yeah,
you've been doing.
That's how I see it.
Yeah, Jason Nash has become infamous for, well, panhandling. It's hard to think of another word for it, especially if you ask other creators.
But for Jason Nash, he decided to take a different route. And that route is begging people on the internet for money. Internet panhandling, cyber begging, call it whatever you will.
If I open my TikTok one more time to seeing him begging for roses on my Live For You page, I'm calling CPS.
See, Jason's main form of content now is live streaming on TikTok. And on the surface, this sounds like a format where he would really thrive, right? I mean, his whole thing is providing impromptu entertainment, so live streaming, it should be a perfect fit. But part of why I think that Jason sees online content as beneath him is, well, from watching his streams. They're incredibly low effort.
Been going to the gym. Been locked in, brother.
Oh, hell yeah.
How about you? You going to the gym?
Leg day?
Like, to me, it really doesn't seem like Jason is trying to establish a foundation on which to grow a following.
Do you think it's good for like improv? I mean, you're seasoned comedy, but like for improv, just being on your feet for that long, is it hard to?
No, I think it's just its own skill. I don't
Yeah.
think I'm any better at improvising because I sit there for 6 hours.
Rather than build something for himself, he's still trying to coast on whatever fame he gained from David. And his signature segment is getting someone else to dual stream with him and battle for who can receive the most donations in a given time.
Let's go! 120 left. Don't let me lose this, guys.
Boom. One more glove.
Elijah, Carly.
Like, I don't know about you, but throughout this, Jason just strikes me as someone who wants to get donations for doing nothing. In fact, he reminds me a lot of what we've seen on Twitch, where people who have never touched a controller assume that there was nothing more to streaming than playing video games with a camera on.
I feel like most people, especially already established creators on the internet, assume Twitch streaming is like the easiest thing in the world. Oh, you just sit there and play video games all day? I could do that. But the streamers people watch, the ones I watch consistently, are really fucking good at it. They're funny and entertaining, they put on a show, or they're just extremely good at the game they're playing, or they have a skill that most people don't have that's fun to watch. Maybe if you created a fun environment, or were better at the game you're playing, or even if you just interacted with your chat instead of staring at your phone every time a cutscene comes on, people would see the value in spending money to support your stream.
Almost seems like Jason Nash should be taking some notes, right? And while labeling this panhandling might seem mean, the thing is, he's basically admitted that due to a lack of income from YouTube, that's exactly what he's doing.
Now look, would I be on TikTok Live if I wasn't in like a financial hole? I don't know, probably not. But also like YouTube wasn't really working and I needed to find something. OnlyFans, I can't do OnlyFans. Yeah, and it's just like, it is what it is.
It's a really big crowd, you know. Much bigger crowd than my shows. Because that's where I'm at with everything. I'm just kind of like, I'll just keep going until I drop dead, you know, whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the videos get a lot of views. It's just like, whatever, just do my best, right? People can sense that. When you stop caring, people like that better. I really don't care. No, I do.
Like when Jason started making YouTube videos, he was making a lot of money, enough to go around.
I did Vine for a couple years, and I did okay on Vine. I was making like, one year I made like $250,000, $300,000.
Through what, sponsors and stuff like that?
Through sponsors.
Right.
And so then like I made like a very, very bad first YouTube video with him. 4 months later, I was making like $35,000 a month.
But that's the problem. It seemed like Jason was living at his means. He was making a lot of money, so he lived like someone who did despite not knowing when it would end. Like most content creators grind for years before making anywhere near a comfortable amount of money.
So I was recording and editing on my iPhone when I first started, and then I got a microphone you can plug in, then I got a computer to edit on, and then after like 2 years of just filming on my phone, I had 100,000+ subscribers.
So I think Jason assumed that YouTube was easy money because for him, it was.
The truth of it is that his vlog did so well that's why my vlogs did well. You know, so I didn't put so much effort into my vlogs. I would just kind of slice of life, my lifestyle stuff. And then I put a lot of the focus on his vlog because that seemed to be like that was the thing that was
Trickle down.
feeding everything.
But for the vast majority of creators, that couldn't be further from the truth. Because yes, anyone can make a YouTube video, but that's exactly why it's so difficult to find success. The fact that anyone can do it means you have to know how to do it better than anyone else. I don't think Jason realized he was living in a house of cards where anything going wrong would ruin him. Like, listen to how he talks about making that much money.
You'd be surprised. Sometimes you get like 10K for like a 6-second Vine. I called my ex-wife and I was like, she's like, I need money for something. And I was like, oh, fuck. And I was like, oh, I got it. No problem. She's like, well, what, how? And I was like, oh, I'm making like $35,000 a month. And there was just like a long silence on the end of the phone. She was like, what? And it felt so good.
And yes, if he willingly opened his wallet to his ex-wife, then that's great, especially with children in the picture. I don't want to dismiss that. But the way he recounts that story, to me, it speaks to how he was viewing money. I've never seen him talk about how he was cautious with his earnings, but only how he would spend them.
So you mentioned that your finances are a bit of a wreck.
Yeah.
I want to hear about this.
Well, I'm just like not the best with money.
How so? What do you mean by that?
I don't know. It's just like I just pay people. I just give away a lot of money.
Why?
I just have a lot of people in my life that I pay.
That's why
I'm not good with money.
Should have took that class.
I can complain about not having money because I don't.
If it makes you feel any better, I'm not either. I pay Jess $15,000 a week.
That's good for you, Jess.
I cannot go to dinners anymore and pay for everybody. I just can't.
No, I know.
No, I can't do it.
I know.
It's got to stop.
It's terrible.
It's unreal. Listen, I'm generous. If I was flush with cash, I'm happy to take the bill. There's no better feeling than being like, I got this. And there's been times in my life when I have been able to do that, but I can't do that right now. Bachelor party, I lost 15 grand, and I didn't gamble.
Maybe don't mention that one.
15 grand?
Bachelor party cost me 15 grand.
You didn't even have strippers.
I didn't even have strippers.
Do you have someone that takes care of your finances, like a financial planner, manager?
It's like Morgan Stanley or something.
Okay.
Yeah. They do it.
Okay. And you tell them like, here's my risk tolerance. Here's what like my goal is.
No, I haven't talked about that. Can we call them now?
Yeah, you
No,
should.
no.
And hell, even Jason would joke that some of his financial decisions were a little aggressive.
We're gonna go look at a house today. For me, trying to buy a house in Los Angeles is pretty stupid. It's literally the dumbest.
And that's part of what drew me to this topic. I really think that on some level, Jason Nash is a cautionary tale for content creators. I mean, how often do you see creators start raking in millions of dollars and immediately adjust their lifestyles accordingly?
You know, I spent a tremendous amount of money on dumb things. But the biggest issue is that I had a nice big nest egg. I took some financial advice from a friend, and I'm not pointing fingers necessarily. I took the advice, but I put my money in the crypto market in the wrong section, and I pretty much lost most of everything.
When you know that this job is almost guaranteed to end after just a few years, I feel like it's dangerous to assume your peak is definitely still ahead of you. And unfortunately, it seems like that's exactly what Jason did. I don't know, call me presumptuous, but I have a hard time believing that things could get this desperate this quickly for someone in Jason's position had they been forward thinking the entire time. Call me crazy, but I really don't imagine Jason Nash sitting down and going through his analytics in order to plan out the next 6 months. And I'm sorry, but these risks should have been especially obvious to Jason.
I love making the videos. So from there, I just was like, this is like a once in a lifetime lightning in a bottle situation that won't be around forever. You know, so I'll do this for the next few years.
Like, not for nothing, but a lot of people fantasize about meeting a famous content creator and being taken under their wing and brought to the top. But man, in practice, that has to be one of the best ways to guarantee your end date as a creator. We've seen it so many times, where people skyrocket to success because of a friendship or relationship with a huge creator just for that to end. At which point, the person loses whatever viewership they had, because the people watching were watching because of someone else that's no longer there. Jason talks about the 3 years he spent doing the rat race of YouTube, but for most creators, it takes longer than that just to make it in the first place. And those tend to be the people who leverage into a longer opportunity because in order to find success, they're forced to learn what works for them and what doesn't. Like in this space, the vast majority of shortcuts tend to backfire in a major way. Though that kind of works as a great segue to Jason's live streaming. More specifically, what has been the response to it? Well, a lot of ridicule from everywhere. People were quick to put him down and make fun of him. Hell, even David Dobrik kind of did.
Dude, you're kind of becoming a legend on TikTok now.
I know. Not in a good
Yeah, but I think it's fun.
Which I'll get to, but on the whole, it is kind of what you would expect. Someone is down on their luck, so the internet dogpiles, bringing up his kids, making fun of him, and telling him to get a real job. And what makes this so much worse is the fact that it's Jason. A lot of cams do not like him, whether it's fans of his ex-girlfriend Trisha Paytas, or people who are critical of his actions on the Vlog Squad, or even people who find him surrounding himself with younger people creepy. Many people don't like him and are more than willing to say it to his face.
And make sure that you're not begging for gifts on live. I think that's really important.
Okay.
At your grown age, I think that's really interesting. Oh.
And understanding the background of how we got here, I think it's worth taking a look at discussions surrounding Jason's streams. More specifically, the criticisms of Jason and even David Dobrik, because I do find all of this just a bit weird. And to be clear, almost everyone I'm talking about famously sucks on some level, so I'm not throwing a pity parade for anyone here, nor am I defending their character. I just want to talk about the discussions as they have been unfolding because of the broader implications. Because here's the thing, despite how critical I've been of Jason, I do feel kind of bad for him. Not for being broke, that's completely due to his choices, but I do feel bad that he became the internet's punching bag.
Your beautiful, recently swatted wife.
Recently swatted. We were swatted last night.
So we opened the front door and the officers have pointed at the door.
I said to the cops, I go, I've been swatted, I've been swatted.
And, so
and you know, I have the stick in my hand with the phone. So now I think, oh, they think this is a, and then I drop that quick.
Yeah.
And I say, I've been swatted, I've been swatted.
I don't know, I'm very critical of how creators monetize their viewership because yeah, creators very frequently deceive and extort their viewers for profit.
Chat, by the way, that MILF token I did a while back, I already told you guys, don't buy that. I got paid a bag to do that. Like, I don't give a f. I hope none of you guys actually bought it.
But Jason is being pretty upfront. He's broke, he's trying to provide entertainment, so if you want to give, please do. He's not doing anything wrong. He made bad choices, there are consequences, and his response is something cringy but ultimately harmless that you can just ignore. Like I covered Logan Paul engaging in various pump and dump crypto schemes and telling his fans that if they don't buy his merch, he'll be homeless, despite being a multimillionaire who just lost some money because of his own bad choices. So compared to that, yeah, I feel like what Jason's doing is fine. So unless he crosses a similar line to the infamous $5 rant,
there are regulars here. $5 a month. $5 to provide for the content that you're watching.
It's $5. Being like, I'm broke, I can't afford to sub, that doesn't really track. What you mean to say is, I'm so irresponsible with my money, I can't support the entertainment that I enjoy.
Guys, $5 isn't that much money. That's why I'm begging you for it.
This feels like another Jake Novak or Love Search situation where the internet responds to cringe with cruelty. I've also seen people say it's gross because TikTok has a lot of kids.
But also, dude, you're begging people for fake stuff on an app made for children. Jason is literally spending hours a day asking TikTok users who are most certainly children to send him ice creams or cowboy hats.
But if I'm being honest, I don't remotely see how that's Jason's fault or problem. He's live streaming on a platform that offers it. Is every live streamer supposed to assume that every donation they get is from a kid? If the issue is the demographic on TikTok specifically, then where do you draw the line for how many kids can be on a website before it just can't monetize? Like if it's unethical, then that criticism should be aimed at TikTok for doing it or parents for not acting as, well, parents. Where do you think the kids are getting credit cards from? This isn't like React content where you're stealing from someone. Jason is putting on a show to get money and people decide if it's worth that. Now in Jason's case, is it lazy, cringy, whatever? Yeah, but so what? He's probably hurting less people than he was with David. And if my take is surprising, given how harshly I criticize creators like Logan Paul and Aiden Ross for taking money from their young fans, there is a huge difference between being visible to kids, like Jason is, and actively targeting and deceiving them because you know that they're gullible like Logan or Aiden do. Now, if you want to make whatever statements about pride or desperation or even Jason Nash being a not so great dude, yeah, I won't argue with them. But I do think that the internet has a really bad habit of encouraging bullying when it's trendy, and this feels like another example of that. Like yeah, this dude probably sucks, but the people making fun of him aren't focused on his questionable past or character, so I personally don't like it. I think it's just normalizing this happening again to someone like Jake Novak, who doesn't deserve to have people film him at his job for being cringy. I don't know, I fully admit that I may be overthinking it, but my head just always goes to like the bigger picture and implication of of these things. Though another criticism that many have aimed at Jason is that it's time for him to accept that his time in the spotlight is over. It's time to move on. And yeah, I mostly agree with that. Every single content creator has a shelf life, a limited amount of time where people will care about them before moving on. And here's the thing, for someone to extend that, they usually have to be incredibly knowledgeable about content creation in a way that Jason just isn't. I mean, say what you will about Shane Dawson, but being a top creator in at least 5 different genres over a decade, not many can pull that off. But for the vast majority of creators, the end is inevitable. And the harder they fight against that inevitability, the sadder it becomes. And I do think that on some level this applies to Jason. It's time for him to move on. Though his response to this idea has basically been that it isn't possible for him to move on and do something else. Like without this, he's left with no options.
You said earlier, somebody said, why doesn't he just get a DoorDash, whatever?
Right.
Do you ever think about going
to DoorDash?
Or to like a, did you ever think about going back to like any other job, or was like
I can't do anything else,
or just like an electrician? Obviously, you do lives with him. I don't know, just entertainment or nothing. I don't care what it is. Like,
what would you suggest I do?
It's just that
get a job at Lululemon.
I'm genuinely asking because anytime I see one, the comments are like, "Why doesn't he like work like a real job?" Like this isn't me saying this as a negative thing. I'm just totally asking.
Please.
Yeah.
Why don't I get a real job?
No.
Is that your question? No. You know what? Not to be offensive or anything, but why don't you give up?
No, that's
why
not.
Don't you give up?
That's really not. I'm genuinely asking because it's the comments I see. I know why you do it.
Yeah.
But like, say that it's okay. You know what? Just label it like that. Why don't you get a real job?
I don't have any skills.
Okay, see people?
I don't.
See, that's why.
Someone said that the other day. Why don't you get into real estate? I'm like,
I hate it.
I don't have a real estate license.
Bo Granny?
Which, like, yeah, on some level, I actually do kind of get what he's trying to say, but there's a very specific part of that was complete BS. Like, okay, yes, I get it. Once you're doing something like this for a living, it's hard to go back. To suddenly go from being in complete control of your life to dealing with all of the BS that comes with being an entry-level employee, yeah, that would suck, and I don't blame anyone for trying to avoid that fate. But at the same time, I feel like Jason is intentionally selling himself short to justify not wanting any kind of 9-to-5. Like, he talks about having no skills, but he does still have a decade of experience with making content for social media, marketing, thumbnails, production, management. I know his strategy was mostly be near David, but there's nothing that he's picked up that would allow him to find work with another channel or in marketing. Like, there are entire firms dedicated to reaching out to influencers and companies in order to facilitate brand deals. I feel like given how social Jason is and how much experience he has both with brand deals and the creator community, influencer outreach should be right up his alley. And even if that's not an option, maybe because of his image or whatever else, at a certain point, if you don't have any skills after 10 years of working in an industry, I don't feel bad for you. You got a free ride. Like, as a creator, I have much less experience than Jason, and yet between the work I've done both on my channel and a few others, I am very confident I can earn a paycheck doing something for a YouTube channel. And that's not even mentioning all of the insane connections that Jason has. Like him saying he doesn't want to do customer service, or even that he can't because of the level of fame he has, sure, I can buy that, honestly. But man, if Jason just commits to being professional and good to work with, I struggle to see how he can't find a paycheck doing something relatively cushy while doing his stand-up on the side.
Have you seen Jason Nash on TikTok Live every day begging for money?
Yeah.
Jason Nash is
he's
live.
got kids.
I just feel like he needs to be like a DoorDash driver then. Like, it's just getting out of hand.
Or a writer or something. He's got talents that he doesn't need to be like so given so much of himself on the internet. Like he could.
Yeah.
But with all that said, I mean, if he prefers the current grind, isn't too prideful to do it, and he remains on the okay side of ethics, more power to him, I guess. Look, Jason Nash is the only one who has to be able to look in the mirror after these streams, so as long as they make enough money to put food on the table, good for him, honestly. He's not hurting anyone doing this, which is more than you can say about many creators, including at times Jason Nash. Though a fair bit of criticism has been aimed at David himself, one of which I totally get, and the other not so much. See, since David was so involved in Jason's rise, this has made some think that David has come to be responsible for Jason. I mean, Jason claimed to be making roughly $420,000 a year at the start of his YouTube career, and let's face it, that number was only so high so fast because of his association with David, and that was likely the bulk of his earnings, as it's been stated that David Dobrik didn't compensate the Vlog Squad members directly.
This might sound stupid, but people on his vlogs, were they ever paid to be on the vlogs, or was it more so you get to appear here, but we'll draw in such a big audience that'll trickle over to everything.
None of the friends were ever paid.
Which has led to people saying that after David basically used his friends for free, taking care of Jason is the least he could do.
He's a horrible friend. Like, Jason, he should have set you up nice. After everything you guys have been through, I don't know what or how, but you should be rich. You should be rich too. The fact that you're like, I got 2 hours on TikTok to pay my bills? That's nuts. Yeah. And were you paid for all that? No. Were you compensated in any way? For a full day of fucking work, fully dedicated to David Dobrik, who's now basically retired off the money? No. What is wrong with these people?
And look, while I am strongly against unpaid labor, especially as someone who did 4 unpaid internships, no, I don't want to talk about it, I think it is a reach to say that Jason wasn't being paid by David. Like, yeah, doing stuff for exposure is usually meaningless, but in Jason's case, I think the fact that he became that wealthy that quickly and fell off as soon as David left YouTube would suggest otherwise. Just ask Jason himself.
But no, they were never paid, but also David never, I know some people that take a cut, and David never took money from anybody, and he certainly could have asked for that, you know? So I always felt like it was quite the fair trade to go and film with him for, you know, a couple times a week and suddenly have like a huge Instagram, to have a big Snapchat. I thought it was a pretty fair trade, you know?
And while Jason has said that he understands David leaving YouTube,
it is crazy how, like, no matter how many people love it around him, if he doesn't love it, he just won't do it.
Yeah, and which is totally fair.
Yeah, I think so too.
Which is like, if you're not into it, that's why I don't bring it up or whatever.
He's also let slip quite a bit of bitterness and hurt feelings towards how things played out.
Yeah, he calls me to play pool, and I'm like, I gotta go live, and I don't expect him to understand that. Like, I know I've told him. There's also things that I like say to him, and I'm not sure if he hears me. Like, I'll say things like, "I'm losing my house," and he'll be like, "Oh, but just come play pool." There was a great TikTok that he sent, which was like some guy, I don't know if you saw it, he sent it to me, it's just like a TikTok, and it's just a guy on the phone, and it's basically David. He's like, it's just the guy that has like a lot of money and can do anything all day. He's like, oh, Diplo's having a party tonight? And like, it's literally like things that David has said. I miss the podcast. I miss the money of the podcast.
I see Jason say this on a TikTok clip like every other week.
What do I do?
He turned down $10 million deal. I see you say that on like TikTok clips all the time about David.
Yeah.
With you,
well, that's like a joke for my act that I say, which is, you know, he turned down all this money and all he had to do was talk to me once a week for 40 minutes. You know, like, I'll tell you why it stings is because that's literally every comment on TikTok Live. When's the podcast coming back? So that's why it stings, because it's like, if no one cared, I'd be like, oh, whatever.
No, that was the best podcast ever.
It was fun.
And on the whole, it is kind of sad to listen to what Jason and David's friendship has turned into, because Jason has still shared that David still makes an effort to spend time with him even with money off the table, yet money is now so deeply ingrained in how Jason sees David.
Yeah, he calls me to play pool, and I'm like, I gotta go live. Like, I'll say things like, I'm losing my house. and he'll be like, oh, but just come play pool.
Now look, I don't want to sound like a boomer and play Defend the Millionaire, but I really don't see what David can realistically be expected to do. He already said Jason for life, and it looks like Jason blew it. Whatever underlying reason there is, I don't blame David if he thinks that giving Jason money is just going to lead to Jason asking for more later. Not for nothing, but Jason says how much he needs money, yet he lives in a really nice LA house and drives a really nice car. But not only does he drive a Tesla Model Y, but he was given a free Tesla Model X in 2019, and that car lasted him a total of 3 years.
My car, 2019 Model X, given to me by a good friend of mine. Unfortunately, the car has a lot of problems, so it's gotta go back. So I am getting a new car. Let me show you what's wrong with the Tesla to begin with. Hold on. Okay, number one, we've got a crack right here. My kids opened the door in the garage. If this door doesn't open, if you wanna use the back seat, everybody's gotta enter from this door, which makes it feel sort of like an escape hatch, especially when you have a bunch of kids in the back, on my daughter and all her friends. The button here is broken. You should be able to hit this and ask for anything you wanted.
And even with this Tesla Model Y, which is way nicer than anything I or most people have driven, listen to how Jason talks about it.
Wow, a Model Y. A step down from what I had.
Yeah, I know it's not a Lamborghini or a Porsche or an Urus, and it's not even as good of a car as I had before, but at least both doors work. Let's be grateful, dude. It's gonna get you from A to B. That's the phrase you always say when you get like just an average car. Hey man, it's gonna get you to A to B. You're not gonna have to worry about anyone stealing it.
So is Jason broke or just unwilling to give up a level of comfort that he's grown accustomed to? Though I mentioned there was a criticism of David that I totally agreed with, and yeah, there is. See, at one point David decided to document him checking in with Jason, and yeah, David came across as a dick. It was just another example of him making content at someone else's expense. And if you think I'm joking, David literally came to Jason's house and made fun of him for doing TikTok live while quite literally wearing a crown.
Guys, I'm visiting Jason. I like to visit him at least once a week just to make sure that he's alive. I know that he's doing TikTok live every day now, but I'm still not convinced it's him. It could be AI at this point. Live streaming.
I was, and then it wasn't going well, so I got off.
Dude, you're kind of becoming a legend on TikTok now.
I know. Not in a good way.
Yeah, but I think it's fun.
Not in a good way.
I've seen TikToks with like take a shot every time Jason Nash is on live. You haven't come over in like a little bit, and I called Joe and I was like, is Jason doing okay? And Joe's like, I haven't seen him on live in a while. And I go, how long has it been? He's like, hours. And that's when we start to worry when you haven't been on live. You look like you just got back from like a Christmas dinner. Why are you dressing so nice?
Well, you do better on TikTok live when you look nice.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Where did you get that stat that you do better on TikTok live? Is that just from testing?
No, someone told me that.
Wait, really?
I met this live streamer, and he's a really nice guy. He was like, hey, little tip. It's like, when you dress nice, you'll do better. And I was like, all right, and then I tried it out. But then again, I didn't make any money today, so.
Bye, guys. Thanks for having us over in your,
Bye, guys.
In your little hobbit home.
Like, man, that's just rough. Having your close friend shove a camera in your face in order to make content out of your financial hardship, while said close friend could end your suffering at any time. Like, while I really don't think any of this is David's fault, knowing that someone lost millions because of a decision you made and then rubbing it in is really tasteless. And it just leaves me thinking that the reason I find Jason's story so fascinating is it might be a real glimpse into what a lot of your favorite content creators will look like one day. Hell, maybe even me. And I'm conflicted about feeling bad for Jason knowing on the surface some of his history. But honestly, it's hard to pin down just how much of Jason's Vlog Squad behavior is fair to pin on him. Not for nothing, but David had a lot of control over him and was more than willing to use Jason's desperation for content.
Do we really need it for the video?
Yeah, we do, because it's like a nice wrapping thing, because we saw an aggressive snake and people are going to be like, well, this is foreshadowing someone getting bit, but no one got bit, so we have to have one little bite.
Just do it, bro! Ah! Get it off me!
Oh my God!
Get it off, David! David, get it off me! David, please get it off! Please fucking get it off! David, get it off!
Oh my God.
Jay, get the fucking thing off my arm! Get it off my arm! Please!
Oh my God!
Please, Jay! Get it off, David! David, get it off!
Because you're yelling at me!
Okay, kid, now it hurts! I'm not kidding, dude!
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!
Fuck you! I'm done with your channel! Oh my God, that was awful!
Last person to remove the match wins $100. In 3, 2, 1, go.
Ooh, it's already hot.
It's in between Jason.
I gotta win something for that. I fucking let it burn my toe forever.
Sorry, Jason, to cut you off there, but you edit your videos down to 4 minutes and 20 seconds for a reason. There's a lot that's cut out, you know. A lot of begging, a lot of please, just do this, please, come on. You get a car. I don't even know what the he's talking about right now, and how the I mean, I'm not surprised why these two are sitting there letting him just say this, because they don't really have a choice.
Really appreciate this.
Bro, that's not even the real Jason. That's him.
I think you will, because...
And with Trisha, she's not exactly someone who's known for being good. So I feel like it's hard to judge Jason there beyond the comments about food. So I think if I had to pick what I want for Jason going forward that would be realistic but fair, I would kind of love to see him as like one of those recurring guests on a sitcom that makes enough to get by and then can do the convention grind afterwards, like Ranjit or Gunther, or hell, make him a Power Ranger. Like, they have some older ones, I'll buy it. But at the end of the day, what point am I trying to make here? Do I just want to join the dog pile against Jason? No, I really don't. Look, call me a boomer, but I don't think either Jason or David did anything wrong when it it comes to Jason's situation. They both made decisions and are both dealing with whatever consequences remain. No, my point is that the story of Jason Nash is an incredible case study for anyone even considering getting into content creation. There are certain moments of his career where he was tasked with making choices that every single creator has to make, and at every turn he picked the wrong one. Much of his decline was entirely avoidable, so I think there's value in knowing why. At least that's what I'm telling myself so I could sleep at night after spending weeks on a video about Jason fucking Nash. Just let me have this one, guys, okay?